absolutely excited, thrilled, ecstatic. I don't know if I can really find the words to describe that finally Trese is going to be adapted. And in this case, it's going to be adapted into anime. And that we're working with Jay Oliva, who has directed some of my favorite, DC animated films, and yeah, so it's I can't. I have no words to talk about how fantastic this is. Of course, looking at how everyone, I guess how everyone else reacted to the announcement is how I feel and how me and Kajo feel, and multiply that by 13 million, I guess. It's great to see everyone so excited on the first day. And on the first day it got announced, I was still at work. Or was headed off to work, and I couldn't, react or reply to anyone. I think it took me a couple of days before I could, post a reply. But yes, it is overwhelming. It's great to see that everyone is excited that this is finally happening as well. Also, great to see people suddenly, everyone has suggestions and already thinking of what will happen, and what's the soundtrack, who will be the cast, what would it look like. So yeah, it just feels great to see so much support from everyone, from the readers to brand new readers. I think that's also the exciting bit, that suddenly we've caught the attention of people who've never ever heard of Trece and suddenly are now very curious to find out more about it. And I hope that when they do read the books and eventually see the series, that they'll like it as well. This is it. This is the main focus. This is going to be the main focus for the next couple of years as far as Trece is concerned. And yeah, thankfully to Base Entertainment, they're the ones who, they're giving their full attention to this project along with Jay Oliva. Did it change any plans? I mean, we've always, I think me and Kajo have just really decided to focus on working on the comic book. So it has always been like a separate project as far as we were concerned. We're of course, assisting and providing especially during the pitch phase. We were providing artwork and illustrations, and I was of course, helping out in terms of describing the world and making it easier to understand whenever it gets pitched. But as far as like book 7 is concerned, is for example, that has been something that I've been struggling with. And as you've seen from the Trece Facebook page, we have started one story of Quezon. But yeah, I mean, me and Kajo have a really rough outline of where to take Trece after book 6. It's just that, yeah, I guess, for many, many reasons, including procrastination, including having a 2-year-old boy who always wants to play, somehow, has made it more challenging to finish writing Trece and finishing Trece. And yes, of course, I moved to Denmark, Kajo moved to Davao. That, of course, we had to go through a period of adjustment and finally get our, figure out how can we produce more work or get back into the groove of working on Trece. If you take a look at my hard drive, you will find a 2002 and 2003 drafts of Trece, where the character was a guy named Anton Trece, and I wrote him at first as an MBI investigator, obviously, following the footsteps of Fox Mulder, who was an FBI investigator. And then I did another version. I tried to actually write Trece in Filipino. And then in that one, I made him into this nosy reporter. Obviously, coming after following Carl Kolchak. the reporter from the TV show. And somehow I never got to finish those scripts. I mean, and it was the White Lady of Balete Drive, excuse me, storyline. So I knew how to start it, but I never knew where to take it. And I guess I was also inspired in years later. I'm a big fan of Warren Ellis, and I guess reading a whole lot of his Planetary, where you have a strong female lead like Jaquita Wagner. In Global Frequency, you have Miranda Zero, and in The Authority, you have Jenny Sparks. I think somehow those characters, got mixed up with the other characters I just mentioned. So when Kajo in 2005 said, Budge, let's make a story, I dug up the old Trece script, I tried to write it, and then I sent Kajo one page just to test. Here's the character, can you make a design? And he did. He which we included in book one of Trece. He made a design for Anton Trece, and he was armed with a buntut pagi, and he was fighting an aswang. And after that page, I said, "Great, fantastic, let's do this." And somehow, as I went back to the script, I just suddenly thought, why does it feel not right that he's just another tough guy investigating supernatural crime? And then I texted Kajo and I said, maybe we should make Trece into a girl. Because we've seen so many tough guys in the past. We rarely see, especially in Filipino, comics, or like, I guess even in our action movies, it's always a tough guy. So I said, can we make him into a girl? And Kajo said, yes, great idea. And I think on the same day sent me like 2 sketches of Trece, of Alexandra Trece, and I guess the rest is history. So yeah, I guess you can say I've always wanted to write my own Batman, and in a way, this is my way of creating a character that helps us investigate Philippine urban legends and our folk beliefs. And I guess that's what I've always had in mind. And then somehow she's grown. She's grown as that character. I hope she has grown from way back when she was in book 1. We designed Trece, and hopefully it works out that way. Was that you can actually enter Trece's world through any of the books. Assuming we did our jobs well, that any book becomes a good jumping on point for a new reader. I guess the first 3 books would be, an easy jumping on point. And that's partly because something I read that Warren Ellis wrote. Warren Ellis wrote an article a long time ago about, he was making a comment about how difficult it is for people to get into comics because of its 50-year history. Making a comment, I guess, on X-Men and Superman and Batman, that you gotta know all this back history about them before you could even, understand half of an issue. So he said we should create pop comics, and the way he described it was that each comic book should be considered like a grenade. You opening the book is like pulling the pin from a grenade, and it explodes. And after the explosion, you're just you're immersed in this world, and you never have to. Ideally, that you never have to like go back. There will be a satisfying one issue, and just in case you never get to read the second issue, then you'll be fine. And I think that's how I designed Trece. I designed it so that it'll be like one-off episodes, at least on the first couple of books. So that, again, we didn't know we would, 13 years later, that we'd still be around. I really thought we would do one issue, or maybe a couple of issues back then. Mainly because, of our jobs and things like that we couldn't really, focus on this thing so much. And that's why all of the issues are like, you could pick up any book or any issue, and ideally you completely understand what was happening and enjoy that read. But yeah, sure, pick up. I mean, I would recommend, either book number 1 or book number 3, just to get the whole backstory of Trece. the story we made for Manila Noir, which is 13 stations, I think is also a good way, a nice one-shot story that quickly introduces you to the different parts of Trece City and makes you understand how have the supernatural and the creatures of folklore now, have mixed themselves into our city, and why do we need a Trece in the city. At the moment we finished the first issue, um, I had already written actually an outline of other things I wanted for her to investigate. Um, I also started to dig up old storylines I had that I never had endings for. And I guess maybe that's what helped the first year of Trece. It was revisiting stories I've always wanted to tell, and these are like supernatural stories. I've had a whole bunch of supernatural stories which I started writing but never got to finish. I guess I was doing my take on Stephen King of Neil Gaiman and Warren Ellis. I was writing these stories. Gaiman's inspiration for American Gods is really the question of him trying to answer where have all of the old gods gone. And he said that when the immigrants moved to America, did they bring their old gods with them? And the question of what happened to the old gods when people stopped worshiping them. I actually like the little bits as much as I love that epic story that Gaiman told. I like those little bits where, for example, the Egyptian gods of the dead opened up a funeral parlor because they don't have temples anymore. Nobody worships them anymore, so they created a funeral parlor. In Sandman, I love that story arc of Ishtar, the goddess of love, who again, back in the past, had temples of love where people had orgies to worship her. But since they've forgotten her, she ended up becoming a stripper in a strip club. And that's the closest she gets to getting worshipped by these, sad, lonely men who come to the strip club. So I thought, great idea. What happens if I take that same question and put it into a Philippine context? And hence you have, those little moments where the gods of war have opened up their own internet arcade where kids, essentially wage war and battle every day, and that's how they get, in a way, they get worshipped that way, in a strange sort of way. And that, those are like the little things that eventually, those are like the different bricks that eventually, become the foundation of Trece. The Nuno under the manhole. Again, it's just answering that question of, where have the Nunos gone? Are they still living in anthills? Maybe they now have, they live in the sewers where it's easier for them to travel, and they live under manholes, right? So I guess that's part of the concept of Trece. And of course, Trece is again the investigator. She's the Sherlock Holmes of Manila. She's the consulting detective. But at the same time, I made her the healer. So I made her the Babaylan Mandirigma of Manila. She's not just the defender, but she is also supposed to be the healer of the city. So she has this dual role that she needs to fulfill. She's not just a sharp instrument, a blunt instrument to like always hit bad guys on the head. She needs to maintain a balance. She is duty bound by her family to somehow, and it's something we've never really described, right? But I mean, I guess the maintaining of the balance means that she can never really wage war and drive out all of these elements from the city, because if you think about it, all of these elemental creatures were here before humans were here, in theory. So they own this land as much as we think we own it as well. So she's just trying to, maintain some kind of balance and harmony between these two worlds. And I think that's the important thing that she's trying to maintain. Of course, how she does it, I guess, is questionable. So, and hence, let's see how it will affect things later on. I guess it would be, I still really like how our secret constellation turned out, which is our tribute to Mars Ravila because it's our tribute to the Darna character. It's our tribute to Warren Ellis because in a way, I guess that's the closest I got to like paying tribute to his planetary series. Um, I guess the idea, the from idea to writing it down, I had the idea of Narda asking the stone from Ding at that final moment. That's how it started. It was uh, Narda saying Ding ang bato. And in my head, of course, it was in Tagalog, and it was her reaching out to Ding, who was in the super form, in the Darna form, and asking him to give up the stone. Um, and that's where it started. And I sat down. I sat down at a Starbucks one night, and I just kept writing and writing and writing, finishing I think three cups of coffee, and and I was just happy how it turned out. And of course, Kaja did an amazing job in those moments, in converting those words into a fantastic art. I love the part where Ding was talking about what he did, why was he away, and how that there was that one page that showed how he hunted down all of Darna's arch enemies and just and killed all of them. Um, but aside from that, I think so. Yeah, I love that. I love that one shot story, and I guess book three also. I mean, in a way, book three at that stage of us making Trese was a culmination of many years of writing Trese, and finally it was like a big climax to everything, but at the same time it was a new beginning. It felt like a new beginning for Trese as far as that issue is concerned. I guess that's how I come up with the concepts for the Trese cases. It's like trying to find where take something from the old, bring it into the new. How does it affect things the moment you bring in that old into the new? And when things get messy, then Trese comes in. I guess it's the simple formula of Trese. I think it's bringing to light all of these old, beliefs and folklore and creatures of old, and putting a new spin to it. Just like the Bangungot story, of course, I completely made that up. There is no such thing as a Bangungot that finds the heartbroken. The Bangungot is the effect of a Batibat as far as textbooks are concerned. That's the belief. But I thought it was just trying. It would be interesting to peel off another layer as far as the Bangungot myth is concerned, and maybe give it an explanation. And yeah, as long as I keep finding these new stories and trying to find a way to put them into a modern day setting, I think there will always be Trese stories to be told. And I think in a way, I hope that it would make the city, living in Manila, living in the Philippines, feel more magical again. That the next time you pass by that same old street, you maybe think, is there a magical creature living here, or what magical thing might happen here? And hopefully no harm comes to you when that happens.